Discover the incredible journey of a hidden girl, how a mafia boss became her unexpected lifeline. In the heart of South Chicago, where towering tenements cast long shadows on cracked sidewalks, Mia paced through dimly lit streets, her spirit stronger than her 16 years would suggest. Abandoned and overlooked, she was a ghost wandering through her own life, invisible to the world that passed her by. The sound of sirens echoed like a distant warning, but Mia was more afraid of the silence that surrounded her. Hope flickered within her like a dying candle, casting an uncertain glow on the dreams she dared to hold on to. Suddenly, her world collided with the notorious Tony, a mafia boss whose name sparked fear in the hearts of the bravest. He stood there, imposing and cold, surrounded by whispers of his ruthless past. At first, he barely noticed Mia, mistaking her for just another lost child lingering too close to his territory. But then he saw something of fire in her eyes, a fierce determination that mirrored the struggles he once overcame. In that fleeting moment, an unexpected recognition passed between them, a tug of loyalty and family values buried deep within Tony's hardened heart. Days passed as they roamed the gritty streets together, forging an unlikely bond. Mia, despite living in a world riddled with economic inequality, began to navigate the harsh realities of life beside Tony, learning how to survive beyond mere existence. Each small victory she claimed, each time she stood tall, unearthed a softer side of Tony that he thought had long since withered away. It was as if Mia were a breath of fresh air in his suffocating world, reminding him of what it meant to care. However, as they grew closer, the shadows of Tony's past darkened their path. Tension brewed as the law began to close in on him. Mia became a beacon of hope, illustrating the impact of choice and the idea of redemption that Tony had long abandoned. Just as she felt the first stirrings of independence, a confrontation erupted, a moment that would put their bond to the ultimate test. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension crackled in the air like a storm brewing. Mia stood before Tony, poised between fear and strength, as they faced the enforcers of the law. The moment squeezed her chest. Was this her chance to redefine herself or the end of a fragile partnership? She needed to show Tony that hope existed even in the darkness, but would he choose her over the life he knew? As she looked into his eyes, an undeniable question hung heavy between them, echoing louder than the sirens that approached. Would Mia's light be enough to guide them both out of the shadows, or would the weight of their pasts extinguish the very flicker of hope they fought so hard to ignite? The sirens grew louder, and Mia's heart raced as she took a step closer to Tony, her instinct to protect igniting. Tension suffocated the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. This was more than just a standoff, it was a moment that could reshape their destinies. Tony remained still, his gaze locked onto the approaching shadows of the law. The fear she saw flickering in his eyes clawed at her insides. He had always taken care of himself, ruled his world with an iron fist. But now, he appeared uncertain, a man caught in the whirlwind of decisions beyond his control. Tony. Mia spoke softly, her voice trembling but firm. We can't let them win. We need to think. For a fleeting moment, he looked at her as if searching for permission, or maybe understanding. It unnerved her how the roles between them had shifted. The mafia boss relied on a girl who had never known love, never been given a chance. Was she really his lifeline, or was she just clutching at the frayed ends of hope? With a sudden surge of energy, Tony turned, his expression a mix of fierce determination and fury. I want to go back to what I was, Mia. Not after you. You've shown me. Before he could finish, chaos erupted. The police swarmed in, flashing blue lights washing over the narrow alley like angry waves. Mia felt her pulse quicken. This was it, they were cornered. They could either fight or fold. She glimpsed the glint of handcuffs, and something in her snapped. Run! Mia shouted, pushing against his shoulder, urgency coursing through her veins. Tony hesitated, the weight of his decisions crashing down on him. She could see the struggle, the impending fight against a lifetime of choices. For a moment, he was unyielding, the past threatening to drag him back into the abyss, but then a flicker of something shifted in his eyes. He grabbed her wrist, and together they darted into the nearest shadows, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. They could barely breathe, their energy fueling them as they slipped through the streets like specters. Mia's heart hammered in her chest, not just from fear, but from exhilaration. She had never felt this alive. The chill of the night air was sharp against her skin, every breath a reminder of her need to survive, the need to hold on to someone in a world that continually tried to rip them apart. "Where do we go?" she asked, the reality of their escape sinking in. "I know a place," Tony replied, his voice low and urgent. There was something in his tone that made her trust him implicitly, even in the midst of their peril. As they navigated the labyrinth of alleyways, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They were forging a path from fear into freedom. But with every step they took, the reality of their choices loomed like a dark cloud above their heads. The authorities wouldn't rest until they found Tony. Mia glanced back at him, searching for reassurance, and found it in his fierce expression. Somehow, they'd been thrust into a game much larger than either of them had anticipated. She knew that this escape might lead to more danger ahead or, perhaps, unlock the beginnings of a new life. "What if they find us?" Mia's voice wavered, fear creeping back in. "They won't. Not if we keep moving." Tony's words were filled with grim resolve, but there was also an unspoken promise. With renewed hope, Mia took a deep breath and nodded. They continued deeper into the night, uncertainty paving their way, two unlikely allies entwined against the world. But as they disappeared into the shadows, one thought consumed her: could she push both of them far enough away from the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole? Tony glanced over his shoulder, the weight of the city settling like a heavy coat on his shoulders. The night was far from over, and with each step, the path ahead came into sharper focus. But one thing lingered in the back of Mia's mind: what would happen when the light finally shined through their choices? As they raced onward, the question echoed louder than the sirens fading behind them. Mia and Tony emerged from the alley, their lungs straining for air as they sprinted into an open street, the neon lights flickering overhead like a heartbeat. The night felt alive, the city pulsating with a chaotic energy that matched her racing heart. The sirens were still distant, but she knew they wouldn't be gone for long. "Left!" Tony barked, quickly veering them towards a narrow side street. The scent of food wafted from a nearby diner, but there was no time to think about hunger or the warm glow of safety. They were still running for their lives. "Are you sure about this place?" Mia asked, her voice breathless but steady. She locked eyes with him, desperate to read the resolve on his face. "Yeah, trust me. It's safer than waiting around," he replied, determination fueling his tone. His grip tightened around her wrist, grounding her even as panic threatened to spiral out of control. They skidded to a halt outside a nondescript building, a faded sign swinging gently over the door: Jim's Corner Store. It didn't look like much, but Tony kicked the door open before she could doubt it. Inside, the store was dimly lit, boxes stacked haphazardly, and the faint sound of an old radio playing in the background. "Jim!" Tony called out, urgency lacing his voice. "We need your help." A tired-looking man emerged from a back room, his brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Cops are on our tail." "We need a place to hide," Tony said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Jim's eyes flickered from Tony to Mia, understanding dawning. "Back here," he murmured, gesturing toward the rear of the store where shelves continued into an even darker space. As they moved through the narrow aisles, Mia's mind raced. She'd come so far from the girl left alone in a cold world, yet now, in the heart of danger, she felt a flicker of hope. But what awaited them in this hidden sanctuary? Jim led them into a small storage room. It was cramped, but it felt safer than the street outside. He motioned for them to be quiet, and they huddled together, hearts pounding in their chests. Mia leaned closer to Tony, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they find us here?" "They won't," he replied, but she noticed the shadow of fear behind his brave facade. "Not if we lay low for a bit." Silence enveloped them, only the distant sound of the police cars echoing through the streets. Mia fought to steady her breath. In that stillness, she could hear her own heart thumping, like a drum marking the time as they waited for the impending storm to pass. What if their worst fears came true? What if everything they de-risked ended in heartbreak? A weight settled in her chest, but the presence of Tony beside her was a reminder. Against all odds, they had each other. "Mia," he said softly as if sensing her turmoil. "Whatever happens next, we face it together. Like we always have." She looked up at him, and in that moment, she saw their futures entwined like vines, each twist representing a challenge overcome, a fear faced, and another step into the light. The darkness that loomed felt a little less heavy, then they heard a sudden crash outside. The police had stormed the store, voices echoing and demanding to search. Panic surged, colliding with the undying hope in her heart. Tony's grip on her hand tightened. "We need to move, now." With adrenaline surging, they shared a determined glance. There was no more time to hesitate. They'd been running for too long. Facing forward, Mia could feel the tension building as they prepared for the leap into the unknown. Could they navigate their perilous escape? What lay ahead in their fractured world? As the door creaked under the weight of chaos, one cold realization settled in: this was only the beginning of their fight for freedom. The room was dim, their breaths mingling with the musty scent of the boxed goods stacked around them. Mia felt Tony's heart hammering against her shoulder, a silent reassurance that they were still alive, still breathing. But as the sounds of the police grew louder, her stomach twisted like a knife. "Do you think they saw us?" she whispered, barely able to form the words around her fear. Tony shook his head. "Stay quiet. We're just a couple of kids hanging out in a corner store." His confidence infused her with a fragile sense of calm, but it was short-lived. The crash of a door being ripped off its hinges echoed through the building. Mia jumped, her pulse racing. This wasn't just a hideout, it felt like a trap. "Jim," Tony said urgently, "is there another way out?" Jim, his face drawn and pale, glanced around nervously. "There's a back exit, but you'll have to move fast. I have to keep the front clear." "Let us go," Tony urged, pulling her toward the back. The world outside grew more chaotic with every second. Heavy footsteps thudded closer, voices barking orders. They were running out of time. Mia's heart raced not only from the adrenaline but from a stirring sense of urgency. How had everything spiraled so quickly? One moment, they were just kids with dreams, and now they were fleeing for their lives. They squeezed through the narrow aisle of stock, their bodies brushing against dusty boxes. Each inch felt like a ticking clock. Jim's eyes darted toward the front as they reached a door at the far end. He shot them a look that mixed desperation with determination. "Go," he urged, pushing open the door to reveal a narrow alleyway. It was dark, but safety thrummed on the other side. "Thank you, Jim," Tony exclaimed, pulling Mia through before she could say another word. The stench of the alley mingled with the crisp night air, and they hesitated only for a moment to gather their bearings. The sirens screamed louder, and stealthily they began to step further into the shadows. "Where do we go now?" Mia asked, her voice trembling as fear clawed at the edges of her mind. "Follow me," Tony said, determination hardening his features. He glanced back toward the chaos behind them. "We're not safe yet. If they find Jim," Mia's gut twisted. The man had put himself at risk for them. If they were caught, it wasn't just their fates in the balance. "Stop thinking like that," Tony interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "We're getting out of here." As they moved, every sound felt amplified: the rush of their footsteps, the distant murmurs of officers, the pounding in her chest. Each step resonated with the weight of what lay ahead. Suddenly, Tony halted, yanking Mia closer to him. "We need to go underground. There's an old subway entrance just up ahead." His voice was a lifeline in their racing thoughts. She nodded, hope flickering weakly. Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, shadows lurking in the corners of her mind. But they pressed on, the familiar ache of their bond fortifying against the uncertainty of their escape. When they reached the entrance, it was dark and eerily quiet, the air thick with dust. "This leads down under the city," Tony assured her, glancing back toward the open alley. "Once we're down, we can find a way around." Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the plunge into darkness, trusting Tony to lead the way. "What if this doesn't work?" she whispered, her heart thudding as dread settled once more. Tony turned to her, fierce resolve sparkling in his eyes. "Then we fight. Together." The way he said it sent warmth through her, igniting a spark of courage. They embraced the unknown, ready for anything, hand in hand. As they descended into the darkness, the city above felt a world away. In that dim space, uncertainty awaited, along with whatever new challenges crept in the shadows. What awaited them underground? Would they find allies or stumble further into danger? The weight of the world felt heavy on their shoulders as they stepped cautiously into the abyss. The air grew cooler as they stepped down into the subway, the faint smell of damp concrete wrapping around them like an old coat. Mia clutched Tony's hand tighter, the grip a lifeline as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Worn tiles crunched beneath their feet, remnants of a world long forgotten. "Stay close," Tony murmured, his voice echoing slightly in the stillness. They moved forward, cautious but driven by the adrenaline that surged through them. With each step, the sound of the chaos outside dimmed, but it did nothing to ease the tightening grip of anxiety in Mia's chest. "What if we run into someone down here?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. The thought of meeting anyone, especially someone dangerous, sent shivers down her spine. Tony paused, scanning the shadows around them. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Just keep your eyes open." Mia nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She could hear the echoes of their footsteps mingling with her own rapid heartbeat. It was eerie, unsettling, and for a moment, she wished she could revert back to the innocence of sitting in their favorite diner, sipping milkshakes and dreaming about the future. As they ventured deeper, the tunnel opened up, revealing an old platform that had seen better days. Graffiti adorned the walls, stories of lost souls and forgotten dreams etched in vibrant colors. Despite the bleakness of their situation, Mia found herself gazing at the art, captivated by the tales expressed through the spray paint. "Pretty wild, huh?" Tony nudged her elbow, his face lighting up despite the dark that surrounded them. "Yeah," Mia breathed, momentarily distracted from the fear creeping back in. "It's like a hidden world down here." The thought of being part of something so different, so alive despite its decay, was oddly comforting in a strange way. Tony grinned, but it faded as soon as he caught the distant sound of voices filtering through the tunnel, a jarring reminder of their predicament. "We need to keep moving," he insisted, urgency creeping back into his tone. They pressed on, quickening their pace, hearts hammering with each echo of footsteps not their own. Mia dared to peek over her shoulder and saw shadows flickering at the edge of her vision. Panic threatened to surface, but she took a breath, grounding herself with the knowledge they were in this together. "Tony," she gasped as they turned a corner. "What if they see us? We'll hide. They can't get to us if we stay sharp." His voice was steady, laced with determination. Yet, that feeling of being hunted lingered. Just then, the tunnel opened wider, and they stumbled into an abandoned ticket booth, remnants of clutter scattered about. Flashes of light caught Mia's eye, and her heart dropped. "Over there." She pointed, catching sight of a flickering lantern. The light danced like a beacon, and a surge of hope clashed with the tension. Could that be a way out? Tony's brow furrowed as he strained to listen. "Let us check it out," but quietly, he instructed. They crept forward, the whispers of their surroundings becoming louder. With each cautious step, the quaint glow transformed into the glaring reality of an underground meeting. Figures were standing in huddled groups, their faces indistinct, but the hard glint of weapons caught Tony's eye. His grip on Mia's hand tightened. "Looks like we found the wrong crowd," he murmured, eyes wide with urgency. Mia's breath hitched in her throat. It hadn't just been officers they were escaping, it seemed their journey had led them directly into the heart of another danger. "What do we do now?" she whispered, her heart racing wildly. Then, from the shadows, one figure stepped forward, and Mia recognized the familiar silhouette. Her heart sank. "Hey! You too!" The voice called out, deep and impatient. It was someone they both knew, and the realization hit Mia like a freight train. But she never expected this encounter. Would this familiar face be an ally or their worst enemy? The uncertainty loomed large as she felt the walls of her world closing in, all choices flipping in an instant. "Tony, what if you stay quiet? Just follow my lead," Tony's words cut through the muffled chaos. What would they do next? Could they turn this unexpected face from their past into an ally, or would this be the moment everything went sideways? The surge of tension hung heavy in the air, the outcome of their fate hinging on a single moment of choice. Mia's breath hitched in her throat, the recognition of the figure sending a chill racing down her spine. There was something almost surreal about seeing him here, in this forgotten tunnel that reeked of desperation and lost dreams. "Donovan," she whispered, the name slipping out as if it were a warning. "Keep your head down," Tony hissed. He tugged at Mia's arm, his eyes darting around as they blended into the shadows of the old ticket booth. Mia's heart raced, caught in a tide of emotions. Donovan had always been a complicated presence in their lives. Friends turned strange, dangerously tangled in a world they barely understood. "Making a big mistake coming down here, Mia," Donovan said with a smirk that filled the narrow space between panic and trust. "Going to get you both killed if you're not careful." "Like you care," she shot back, the fear and anger mixing together inside her. "What are you doing with these people?" Donovan stepped forward, the flickering light revealing his chiseled features and sharp eyes, eyes that had once held kindness but now reflected a world of hard choices. "Been keeping an eye on you too," he replied, voice low. "Things are bad topside, and it's worse down here. This crowd, they're not playing games." Tony leaned closer, whispering urgently, "How do we get out?" Donovan paused, his gaze flickering between them and the looming threat of the gathered figures. "Not without drawing attention. But if you trust me, I can help." "Help?" Mia repeated incredulously. "You mean lead us deeper into danger?" "Yeah, but I wouldn't let anything happen to you," he replied, the sincerity creeping back into his voice. The stormy history between them tugged at her heart, the boy she had grown up with, now tangled in a web spun by choices neither of them had foreseen. "What if we can't trust you?" Tony's voice was steady, but the concern tightened around his words. "Then you're already toast," Donovan said bluntly. "But I'm here now. I need your help just as much as you need mine. The people you're trying to escape, they're hunting all of us. I know a way to keep you safe, but it's going to be messy. You gotta follow me." Mia exchanged a glance with Tony, seeking a silent connection. All that they had been through, the mundane arguments, their dreams now felt miles away. The world they knew was collapsing into the darkness surrounding them. "What do we do?" she asked in a voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the moment pulling her deeper into the unexpected chaos. Donovan gestured to the shadows where the other figures lingered. "I'll create a distraction. Then we run. You stay beside me. Don't stray. Trust me, Mia." The desperation in his voice cut through everything, echoed by her own racing confusion. Could she trust him? But did she have a choice? "Now or never," Tony urged, ready for anything, his fear morphing into a brave determination. "All right," Mia said, heart pounding tantalizingly loud in the confined space. We do this together. The exchange felt monumental, 3 lives now intertwined by fate again, the shadows looming above bringing a sense of dread but also a surge of hope. The way forward seemed entangled with peril, yet they had no alternative. With a quick nod, Donovan stepped into the light, his presence causing the figures to perk up, their murmurs rising like a dark wave. "Hey!" he shouted, voice booming. "Looks like we've got some uninvited guests." Mia squeezed Tony's hand tightly, a mix of panic and trust filling her as they dashed down the tunnel after Donovan. The darkness swallowed them as the chaos above erupted behind them. What awaited them beyond the shadows? Would the past's holds release their grasp, or would they find themselves further entangled in a world that promised peril at every turn? The edge of uncertainty stretched ahead, and with it, the pulse of danger and potential. The echo of Donovan's voice faded into the shadows, a distant reminder of the danger they were fleeing. Mia and Tony sprinted after him, the rush of adrenaline pushing them forward. The darkness pressed around them, thick and suffocating, but Donovan's figure at the front, a beacon of uncertain safety, drew them ever closer. "Move it!" Donovan shouted, his urgency palpable as they ducked through a narrow opening that led deeper into the catacombs. A sudden burst of voices, harsh and aggressive, pierced the silence behind them. They were right on their heels. Mia's heart pounded. Each step felt like a lifetime. She could hear the scuffling of feet, the angry shouts. "I can't believe we're doing this," she muttered, barely able to keep pace. "Just trust him," Tony replied, breathing heavily. He glanced over his shoulder, eyes wide with fear. "We don't have a choice." They plunged further into the darkness, a twisting maze of damp concrete corridors that seemed endless. As they ran, Mia struggled to keep her emotions in check. Her past with Donovan, friendships frayed by secrets, moments laced with laughter, felt like a ghost haunting her thoughts. Could she really trust him now? Donovan led them into a wide chamber, the walls damp and coated with grime. A faint light flickered above like a cruel joke, illuminating a haphazard collection of broken machinery and discarded objects. It was quieter here, but the oppressive silence seemed to pulse, teetering on the edge of tension. "Here," Donovan panted, pointing to a stack of old crates. "We can hide until they pass." Mia exchanged a nervous glance with Tony. "What if they catch us?" "They won't." "Not if you stay quiet," Donovan whispered back, urgency sharpening his features. He crouched behind a crate and signaled for them to follow. As they nestled together, the reality of their situation sank in. Mia felt a small surge of hope. The unfamiliar warmth of Tony's hand clasping hers steadied her racing mind. It was a reminder of their shared journey, of their fight to reclaim their lives from the chaos above. But that hope flickered unsteadily, like the light overhead. "You think this is really going to work?" Tony whispered, his voice strained. "What if we're cornered down here?" Mia didn't answer, instead focusing on Donovan. He seemed so different now, a shadow of the boy she once knew. In this world, he was a survivor, and perhaps they needed to adapt just like him. The air felt tense, like the calm before a storm. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The figures chasing them had found their way inside, and their voices were a cacophony of threats and anger. "Split up! They can't have gone far." Mia's stomach dropped. Fear solidified in her throat. "They're here." "Stay low," Donovan instructed, his tone fierce with determination. He glanced toward the entrance, calculating, assessing their options. "If they come in, we bolt. There's a back exit on the other side." The adrenaline surged through Mia as she thought about running again. But it felt different this time. Almost reckless. Would they make it? She looked at Donovan, searching for any sign of the boy she used to trust. "I know this isn't easy," he said softly, his eyes locking onto hers. "But I'm not letting you get hurt. I promise." As sounds grew closer, her focus shifted back to survival. The danger was no longer abstract, it was alive and breathing down their necks. Here they come, Tony whispered, heart racing as they huddled closer together, eyes wide with fright. In that moment, the tension cracked and surged, and Mia knew they were teetering on the edge of something big, something that would change them all. What would happen next? Could they truly escape this nightmarish world, or would they fall deeper into the shadows? Only time would tell as the echoes grew louder, threatening to swallow them whole. The air thickened with the sounds of their pursuers closing in. As the footsteps grew louder, Mia held her breath, feeling every heartbeat amplify her fear. The weight of the crates felt heavy against her back, a thin barrier between safety and chaos. She dared to glance at Donovan, whose face was a mixture of worry and fierce determination. Just stay close, he whispered, eyes darting around the room. We can make it. Mia nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Each shout from behind thrust them deeper into despair. The fear wasn't just about getting caught, it was about what lay outside the walls of their fragile hideaway, what the world beyond had become. Suddenly, a shadow flickered at the entrance. The voices yelled again, this time closer. They must be in here. Search every inch. Get ready, Donovan murmured, clenching his fists. The tension in the room was palpable. It was as if they were holding their breaths not only to stay hidden but to stay alive. With every echoing footfall, Mia felt her thoughts racing. Had Donovan really changed, or was this merely survival instinct kicking in? Memories flooded her mind, the laughter they had shared, the secrets they had kept. She wanted to believe in him, in the boy who once promised to protect her. Do you think they have guns? Tony whispered, his voice shaky. Mia squeezed his hand tighter. I don't know, but we can't let them find us. The voices outside grew more frantic, tossing accusations back and forth. Time seemed to stretch into eternity, the anxiety gripping Mia like a vice. Suddenly, one of the shadows at the entrance stepped closer, peering inside the dim light. Looks like we found something, a voice growled, filled with malice. Shh, Donovan hissed, and they instinctively ducked lower behind the crates. Mia's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her ears, the adrenaline washing her thoughts away in a rush of survival instinct. The figure entered the room, scanning the area. With every beat, Mia felt as if her chest was going to explode. She glanced towards Tony, whose eyes were wide with terror. Was this the end? Then, almost like a beacon, the back exit Donovan mentioned came into view. It was a narrow opening, barely more than a crack, but it was their chance, however small. Now, Donovan said, urgency compelling his voice to barely rise above a whisper. He nudged them to the side as the figure moved closer, distracted by the dim light overhead and the potential treasure in the shadows. Mia, Tony, move. Donovan ordered softly. They slipped around the crates. Fear raced behind them, urging them forward. Heart thumping loudly in her ears, Mia propelled herself through the opening just as the shout of surprise from the figure echoed through the chamber. It was a tight squeeze, and Mia felt a sharp pain as the rough edges tore at her clothing. She crawled through, pushing with every ounce of strength she had left. On the other side, Donovan was already waiting, his hand reaching for them. Go, go. He pulled Tony through next and then helped Mia stumble to her feet. But they weren't out of the woods yet. The sounds from behind them grew louder, the voices merging into a chorus of rage and disappointment. Donovan's eyes scanned the dark corridor ahead, warranting a choice that could change everything. We can go left or right. He paused, glancing back at the opening they had just escaped from. They'll come this way. We don't have much time. Mia stood frozen, panic rising. What if they went the wrong way? More echoes forced her to make a choice. The weight of their lives rested in her hands as she took a shaky breath. Left, she blurted out, hoping that instinct would guide them away from danger. Donovan nodded, and they took off, hearts pounding, but as they ran deeper into the catacombs, something from the corner of Mia's vision made her stop. A glimmer in the shadows caught her eye, something familiar, something she thought she had lost. What is that? She gasped, pulling Donovan and Tony back towards the light. What lay ahead was more than a relic, it was a decision that could unravel everything she thought she knew about her past. Is it worth it? Donovan asked, eyeing the flicker in the darkness. But Mia's heart raced for an entirely different reason now. This secret could change everything. As they stood there, the echoes grew louder behind them, but she felt a pull towards the glimmer. What if this hidden treasure unlocked a door to her past? Would she dare explore it? Mia felt a tug in her chest, a mix of fear and curiosity. The glimmer danced in the shadows, beckoning her to come closer. She turned to Donovan, whose brow was furrowed in concern. "We can't waste time," he urged, glancing over his shoulder as if sensing the urgency of danger creeping closer, but the light swirled in a way that felt almost inviting. What if it's something important?" she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of the moment. The echoes of the shouting figures behind them seemed to fade slightly as she focused on the shimmer, tugging at her memories. "Important?" Tony echoed, his face pale. "Like what?" "I don't know," Mia replied, her heart racing. "It could be something from before, something that belongs to my family." The thought both thrilled and terrified her. "Your family?" Donovan's tone changed, a hint of understanding seeping in. "You mean yes. Maybe it holds a key to my past." She took a step toward the light without thinking, drawing in a sharp breath. The memories danced tantalizingly at the edge of her mind, voices long forgotten whispering through time. "Mia!" Donovan hissed, a sharp urgency in his voice. "You can't. We need to move." But it was as if she were entranced. "What if this is my chance to understand why everything happened?" She gestured toward the flickering light, a wild hope igniting inside her. "I have to know." Before Donovan could protest further, she rushed forward, crossing the threshold into the sliver of hope. The light burst into focus, revealing a small, rusted locket lying half-buried under layers of dust and debris. It was ornate, a design she recognized from old family pictures. Almost reverently, she knelt to pick it up, brushing away the dirt. As her fingers closed around the locket, a rush of warmth spread through her. The hope wrapped around her like an embrace. "Donovan, it's beautiful and it might have meaning." "Mia, behind you!" Tony shouted, panic breaking the moment. She turned just in time to see the shadows coalescing, figures advancing with ferocity towards them. Donovan grabbed her arm. "We need to go. Now." In a split second, she tucked the locket into her pocket, feeling its weight anchor her to something greater as they sprinted down the corridor. Donovan's grip tightened on her wrist, dragging her forward with fierce urgency. The echoes of angry shouts drove them faster, the darkness seeming to close in as they raced further down the dim, twisting passageways. Mia could hear the crashing of footsteps behind them as the pursuers grew nearer. "We're almost there," Donovan shouted, pointing ahead to a faint light at the end of the corridor. Hope surged within her as she focused on the tiny flicker ahead. But as they neared that light, a loud crash echoed from behind them, causing a burst of adrenaline to propel Mia forward. The moment felt surreal, like a chase in a dream gone awry. Each heartbeat resonated in her ears, mingling with her quickened breaths. When they finally burst through another door, they stumbled into a vast warehouse filled with towering shelves, but there was no time to marvel at their surroundings. The sudden expanse of space felt both freeing and menacing, the possibility of escape mingled with desperation. "We need a plan," Donovan panted, glancing around. "They'll be here any second." The urgency pressed on Mia again, the weight of the locket heavy in her pocket, almost shielding her from the terror thundering at the door they'd just exited. "We can hide," she suggested, darting towards a stack of crates in the corner. "They might not check here at first." As they squeezed behind the crates, an unsettling silence fell over them, broken only by ragged breaths. Mia felt the thrumming of her heart steady slightly, not from relief, but because she could feel something deeper stirring within her. The locket had ignited secrets buried within, a connection to the past that could hold her future. "What do we do if they find us?" Tony's voice trembled, matching the fear etched across his face. "We fight," we run, we survive, Donovan whispered, his eyes scanning the dim shadows of the warehouse, yet, amid the fear, Mia could feel a flicker of the strength she hadn't known she had. No matter what happens next, we stick together, she said firmly. With this locket, a piece of my past is with me. We can't let them take it. As they waited in tense silence, they heard the door burst open. Shadows poured into the room, searching for them among the crates. Mia's heart went cold. Would they be found? Would they lose everything they had fought for so far? And what did this locket really mean for her journey ahead? The answers hung in the balance, waiting to unfold as the future loomed just out of reach. The sound of heavy boots thundered across the warehouse floor, echoing against the high ceilings. Mia's heart raced, her grip on the locket tightening instinctively. They had come too far to be caught now, and dread hung in the air like a thick fog. Donovan crouched low, his eyes darting toward the shadows that flickered at the edge. We stick together, he whispered. Remember, no one goes off on their own. Tony squeezed Mia's hand, the warmth between them a steadying anchor amid the chaos. We'll find a way out, he assured, his voice tempered with fear but flickering with hope. She met his gaze, and an unspoken bond passed between them, a silent promise to fight together. The figures prowled through the aisles, voices merging with muffled threats. They couldn't have gone far. Check every crate. One shouted. Anxiety dipped into her stomach, but Mia swallowed hard and focused on the locket nestled against her skin. It felt like a lifeline to her family, a reminder of her roots. But then, as if the universe was responding to her heart's deep wish, a thought sparkled in her mind. Donovan, remember the old escape routes? She whispered, her voice barely a tremble. The ones through the warehouse back door? He nodded, comprehension flooding his face. Yeah, but it's a long shot. We need to make it to the loading dock. Then let us do it. She encouraged, determination fueling her resolve. With a quick glance at Tony, they wove through the shadows, the three of them like phantoms in the dim light. Every creak of wood sent adrenaline surging, but they pressed onward, barely breathing. As they approached the loading dock, the voices behind them faded slightly. There. It looks like they went that way. Someone shouted, reigniting their urgency. They dashed to the far wall beside a loading bay door, hidden behind stacked pallets. On 3, Donovan mouthed, counting down with his fingers. 1, 2, 3, Donovan pushed against the door, muscles straining. It creaked open, revealing the cool air of the night beyond. Freedom lay tantalizingly close, but the tension wouldn't let go. They slipped into the alleyway, the echoes of chaos fading quickly as they escaped into the cool embrace of the night. I think we lost them, Mia said, panting. They huddled behind a dumpster, looking out into the dark emptiness of the streets. But now what? Now we regroup, Tony replied, a newfound determination in his voice. That locket you found, Mia, it's important. We need to figure out what it is. She nodded, feeling its comforting weight. It's my family. I've never known much, but maybe this holds the key to who I am. Donovan tilted his head. We can't go back home yet, but I have someone who might help. A friend who knows the city better than anyone. Can we trust them? Tony asked, skepticism threading his words. They're loyal. They owe me, Donovan insisted. The conviction in his voice eased some fears but left Mia unsure. Could she trust this turn of fate? Let us do it, Mia said, her heart swelling with a courageous fire. If we can unlock my past, maybe we can find a way to build a future. The streets were quieter now, yet the danger still lurked not too far away. They began walking swiftly, the shadows of their former lives trailing behind them. As hope glimmered on the horizon, the three joined together, friends woven by shared struggles, destinies entwined by uncertainty, and then the moment came like the sunrise breaking through a long night. They found themselves outside a small, dimly lit cafe tucked behind less visited alleys. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, filled with soft murmurs and the scent of brewing coffee. The flickering neon sign transformed the cafe into a safe haven. Seated at the back was Cassie, a fierce, unwavering spirit. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "You finally made it, huh? Thought you could escape the city without calling in the cavalry?" They hurriedly explained the night's events, and Cassie listened intently. When they revealed the locket, her eyes widened. "This means your family didn't just disappear, Mia. They fought for something. Something big," Donovan added. "And I think that fight is what connects us all." Mia felt a surge of hope. This wasn't just about escaping the darkness anymore, it was about finding her identity, forging a path built on resilience and loyalty. Hours passed as they pored over the stories of the past, uncovering layers that Mia had always been afraid to touch. There was laughter, tears, and determination, each memory knitting them closer together, forming an unbreakable bond through the fires of struggle. As dawn broke, a new chapter began. They stepped out of the cafe, the sun bathing the world in gold. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the locket in her pocket, the promise of her past propelling her into the future. Together, they faced the city that once felt daunting. But now, it was brimming with possibilities. "Let us show them what we can do," Mia said, her heart full of hope and fire. The shadows of her past no longer felt insurmountable. Where there had once been despair, there was unity. They were not just survivors, they were fighters, beginning to carve their own legacy in a world that had once tried to silence them. As they walked into the sunrise, anticipation crackled in the air. This was just the beginning. And they were ready for whatever came next. Now, it's your turn. Don't let this inspiration fade away. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share the love. Comment below your feelings about this incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the channel. This is the moment to show you care. Don't wait not even one more second to be part of this community.